With all of this said, however, during the month it's taken to produce this video, I've further reduced my dairy and egg consumption, and if the world keeps going the way it's going, I'll probably be vegan within the year. But it won't be because I buy the ethical vegan argument. It won't be because our circle of altruism should extend to all sentient beings. No, it will simply be either one, because my circle of altruism will extend to all sentient beings, courtesy of socio-economic and environmental privileges, or two, because my tribe circle will extend to all sentient beings, and because my well-being is tethered to my tribe. And because my well-being is tethered to my tribe, I'll sing their song.
Stephen Woodford. What has he done with his life between age 25 and 31? What exactly has he become learned in? What is it exactly that he has experienced with? A lot of people are cursed rather than blessed by commercial success early in life. I've said this to personal friends many times, and I've never said it on YouTube before, but talent is a trap. I knew young people in high school who were cursed with being just a little bit too good at a sport, and as a result, they never got good at anything else. I knew young women who were just a little bit too beautiful too early in life, and they got a career something like modeling. One path or another was made a little bit too easy, and then they never developed in those other ways. And these are people I knew well enough to see that they had a spark of intellectual potential. They had the raw intelligence necessary to basically do anything they wanted to do with their lives. But they didn't do any of those things. Instead, they did what was made easy for them by a society that, in a sense, preys upon their talents. If you can really throw a basketball, if you can really hit a baseball, or if you can walk down a runway, sell a bar of soap, sell a designer dress, right? Talent is a trap, and it's very easy from the outside to feel a sense of yearning that you wish you were one of those people for whom success was easy. But what's best for all mankind is instead to struggle to distinguish yourself from the masses that you are, without intellectual accomplishment, indistinguishable from. I used to be a scholar of Buddhism, and I'm not anymore. I often kind of joke and say it's just not a part of my life in any way, right? But it certainly was part of the sharpening of my mind that I apply to talking about philosophy on YouTube today, talking about politics, critique of religion, critique of atheism, Buddhist ethics, so on and so forth. I became a scholar of something. Years of incredibly hard work, just a huge amount of reading, research, learning languages, and including, the most casual form of archaeology, by which I mean just going out and visiting archaeological sites that other people had dug up, just doing tourism, if you like, where I was going and looking at stone inscriptions and all these things. Right? I'm no hero. It's nothing extraordinary. But it certainly is an extraordinary contrast to someone like Stephen, someone like Cosmic Skeptic, someone like Ask Yourself, someone who at a very early age got money and fame and respect on the internet and then disappeared into a narrow little oubliette on Discord. These guys are all video game addicts who just listen to a chorus of like-minded opinion. And even when people debate with them, even when people disagree with them, even when people challenge them, they don't realize the extent to which those people disagreeing with them really are only disagreeing within this very narrow category of the type of video game addicted loser who would be on Discord talking to them that way in the first place. Utilitarianism. At the great universities of Europe today in the 21st century, all right, is utilitarianism an important philosophy anywhere? At the great universities of China, of India, of Japan. Are these considered really important philosophical texts? Is there now anywhere in the world a political party for whom Jeremy Bentham is a major and important philosopher or theorist? Even within the tiny demimonde of vegan philosophy, of vegan politics, who gives a fuck about utilitarianism? Who cares about, who looks up to the philosophy of Jeremy Bentham? A tiny number of video game addicted losers within Discord. Precisely people like Stephen here, Rationality Rules, people like Cosmic Skeptic, people like Ask Yourself. The type of people who look up to and admire Sam Harris, right? And who disregard what Sam Harris's religious philosophy actually is, something I have made YouTube videos about in the past. Stephen has no pretense of being well-read in vegan theory, in vegan politics, in vegan philosophy. He does not present himself as someone who has read Gary Francione. Now, who else is there to have read, if we're being honest? I mean, if we're going to make a list of heavy hitters in vegan politics and vegan philosophy, the top 5 list, it includes Gary Francione and me. And there aren't a whole lot of other names to put in the list. But okay, we can make a full list and include some names like Casey Taft. You could do the full, you could get a sense of the variety of theories that are contending. The citizenship approach, the abolitionist approach, so on and so forth. Could get into the founder of PETA and her philosophical views, so on and so forth. Here is Stephen referring to the ethical argument for veganism, the philosophy of veganism, the politics of veganism, as if there is only one. And what he's addressing is this frankly very unpopular and fatuous and pointless theory derived from an internet nerd's reading of utilitarianism that nobody outside of their narrow little subculture on the internet cares about, and nobody has ever cared about. Right? Veganism, it's big money. There are multi-million-dollar foundations in this game. If you think these are the important theoretical and philosophical arguments in veganism, why don't they matter to PETA, multi-million-dollar organization? Why don't they matter to DXE, Direct Action Everywhere? I've done lengthy, in-depth critiques of the political philosophy of DXE, originally written and published by Wayne Seong. I've read their material. Again, Stephen hasn't. He doesn't know about this stuff. He doesn't know about the debate going on within veganism over the last 5 years or the last 10 years. The things he has been debating and pontificating on here, right? They're neither true nor false. They're frankly irrelevant to the political and philosophical discourse within veganism. And the saddest thing of all is he doesn't even know that yet. I said many times when I first started this channel, there are going to be no footnotes and there are going to be none of the niceties and conventions of academic writing. I was already very familiar with academic writing and very frustrated with it. One of the biggest taboos in academic writing is to offer ad hominem arguments, is to ask the question, who is this guy? What has he done with his life between age 25 and age 31, aside from sitting on his ass on the internet and, as I say, fairly effortlessly becoming famous? Do you think Stephen is well-read? Do you think he has a wealth of real-world experience, of research, of activism, of being involved in any kind of political or historical struggle? Did he go to Syria? Did he go to Iraq? I mean, it can't be Cambodia for everyone. Has he gone anywhere and done anything? How about Rachel Oates? How about any of the colleagues he's come up with in this way? Or is it fair to say that they are, as the old idiom goes, hothouse flowers who've really been living their lives under glass in circumstances where some people have to struggle, some people have to work very hard to achieve the level of fame they've achieved, but some don't. Some people, like Stephen and Rachel Oates, pretty much have that fame handed to them effortlessly. And to be fair, there is some kind of talent involved here. But as I cautioned before, talent is a trap. It becomes tremendously corrupting for people of all ages because they stop challenging themselves. They stop learning. They stop really developing through what I call active research. What Stephen is presenting us with is not an informed opinion. It's important to include the ad hominem component here. And it doesn't mean being cruel or being catty. It's important to reflect on our own personal experiences, our own personal biases, even if that's just what we have read and what we haven't read in life. Talking about other people. What are their opinions based on? What are their conclusions based on? And it may come out of ignorance, or it may come out of some very specific experience in life that shapes the way they think about these topics, what their conclusions and recommendations are. But to say, this is who I am, this is what I know, this is what I care about, and therefore, this is my philosophy, this is my political praxis, whatever it may be. Long story short, my response to Stephen is this. You are making the error of disregarding the positive difference you can make in the world by focusing needlessly on the difference you cannot. There are creatures like gophers. There are creatures that burrow in the ground that are killed by vegan forms of agriculture. There are creatures like rabbits. There are creatures like rats. And there are innumerable forms of insects that are killed by vegan farming, both actually and you could say hypothetically. Like if you're thinking about a future civilization, a hypothetical science fiction civilization where 100% of people are vegan, there's still going to be some rats, some moles, some gophers, some burrowing animals, some insects that are killed for our production of food. But if you think of that as the difference you cannot make, why would that in any way diminish the significance of the difference you can? Now, Stephen, I think the reason why you're so mind-blowingly stupid about this is your lack of hands-on real-world experience. If you go to Cambodia and you want to work in education, you want to help one of the most backward, ignorant, post-communist, post-war disasters of a country have higher and higher levels of education, you might go there with the stated mission of saying you're going to educate the poor. You're going to educate the poor and disadvantaged and backward. And you get there and you set up the school, and you have a really good school. You have a really excellent school. And guess what? The richest and most powerful people in the country, they want their kids to go to your school. And they're going to make it happen. And now you find yourself struggling just to reserve 10% of the seats in your school for the poor and disadvantaged, because you've ended up helping the people who need the help the least. You've ended up helping the economic elite and the political elite give their kids a better education, right? So you're one man, and let's say you have 10 employees. You have a small school. You're one man with 9 other teachers plus 1 secretary. That's the school, And you can become overwrought with the thought of the difference you can't make. You can become consumed by the awareness that there are illiterate rice farmers in the countryside and you are not reaching them. You are not helping them. There are people, when I was there, still some people in conditions like refugee camps, displaced people, we'll say. Not necessarily refugee camps formally. But anyway, at different times, there are people living in these, terrible conditions. We still had tribal people living in the mountains in, frankly, tribal conditions in World War II, Okay, do you want to become consumed by the awareness of the difference you cannot make? Or do you want to focus positively and pragmatically on the difference you can? That the situation is you can help some people. You can educate some people, Or, yes, you can throw up your hands and offer some kind of bizarre utilitarian rationale about how this is not strictly logically consistent and that therefore you're going to help nobody at all. Now, that world, that demi-monde of humanitarian work, it brings you into a lot of moral compromises you thought you'd never make. So let's say you're running this small school, and again, maybe you've reserved 10% of the seats for orphans, frankly, but for poor and disadvantaged people. And your original plan was for 100% of the seats to be poor and disadvantaged people, but it didn't work out that way. You're out there doing this. What kind of people are you going to employ? Who are your colleagues going to be? Who are you going to work with? I'm an atheist. I'm a nihilistic atheist. Probably the only employees you can get, and probably the best employees you can get, will be Christian fundamentalists. They will be pious Christians who want to help the disadvantaged and the poor, people who are committed to a life of sobriety and self-discipline, coming out of a spiritual background of some kind. If you're lucky, maybe you can find some Buddhist fanatics, maybe you can find some Hindu fanatics, maybe you got to work with Muslims. I met people doing charity to help people in Cambodia and Laos, and that out of a Muslim cultural background, right? But if you think you're going to be able to work with the type of hippie who is doing ecstasy and meth at the full moon party in Koh Phi Phi or Koh Phangan or whatever, like the type of tattooed hippie bon vivant atheist who goes to Cambodian town, those are the people who are going to buckle down and do the excruciating work of learning the language, who are going to live in really tough conditions, a life of, frankly, worse than monastic self-sacrifice, because you can have a very comfortable life as a monk, whether that's a Christian monk or a Buddhist one. The people with those qualities and those characteristics, it's going to be a real challenge to your atheism when you look around and find that you've now surrounded yourself with people who ideologically and philosophically really disagree with you. When you have problems running your school, like maybe there's a corrupt government official who's trying to extort money from you, maybe a corrupt police officer, maybe you're just having problems doing the paperwork that you need to keep your operation running. Who do you turn to? Who do you talk to? Over time, you may find yourself being drawn into a web of intrigue at the American embassy, at the Australian embassy, where you are in fact informing the CIA or people who are proxies for the CIA working for shadowy agencies like the US State Department. It's remarkable how many businessmen, including small businessmen, are connected to what we might call the intelligence community in places like Cambodia and Laos, and where every so often the intelligence community or someone who has a seemingly respectable job at the embassy actually asks you for a favor, asks you to talk to somebody, asks you to tell them something, asks you to go and have a look around, asks you to give someone a guided tour, asks you to provide a cover story for someone. You might find that there is somebody who is overtly or covertly a CIA operative, and someone, whether it's from the Australian embassy or the American embassy, they ask you to do the paperwork to make it appear that this person is a teacher at your school, but they're not really going to teach. They're going to be out somewhere else doing something. And they may tell you that this person is an agricultural engineer going out to work in the rice industry. That was the old, that's real 1970s, 1980s cover story. That was the old style. There would be a suspiciously large number of agricultural experts working to improve the quality of rice in Cambodia and Laos. You may find yourself making moral compromises just to keep that little school going, and just to provide that education and opportunity to a small number of people, where you won't be helping the poor and disadvantaged rise up in society. You will be helping the elite become even more elite. You will be helping to exacerbate inequality, to make people more unequal, not less. This is the kind of perspective of the harm that must be done in the pursuit of doing good, that you only get from real world experience, neither from the reading of books nor from the playing of video games and sharpening your claws through these kinds of very artificial internet debates, whether that be on Discord or on YouTube or whatever the latest streaming platform is, whatever's fashionable these days. All right? My conclusion is not to say to you, go out and be a hypocrite. All right? My point is to say that real vegans are not people who proceed from a chalkboard equation of what would be logically consistent with the utilitarian theories set down by Jeremy Bentham. Real vegans, the people who are changing the movement now and who will make a difference in the future, are precisely the ones who understand, whether cerebrally or intuitively and through experience, they understand that harm must be done in the pursuit of some good. They're people who understand that if you want to stand for office and run for government, you cannot morally object to the amount of jet fuel you're going to burn going from town to town to give your lectures, to make your bid, try to get yourself elected into government. You can't say, oh, no, I couldn't possibly ruin the world's atmosphere by taking a whole bunch of needless flights as part of my election campaign. And they are going to be the people who are going to sit down and solicit donations from, frankly, the most evil corporations in the world. You can be uncompromising in the pursuit of the good. And in so doing, you recognize that you, in your way, will also do tremendous harm. Reality does not now fit into, and never has fit into, Jeremy Bentham's utilitarian formula. Life is fundamentally not about the maximum amount of pleasure with the minimum amount of pain. People who change the world are the ones who are willing to endure unspeakable sorrow, tremendous suffering, and who are even willing to inflict pain on others in the pursuit of what they know to be good.